secrets by J.K. Rowling. Just living with emotion, Wood turned to Harry. It'll be down to you, Harry, to show them that a seeker has to have something more than a rich father. Get to that snitch before Malfoy, or die trying, Harry, because we got to win today. We've got to. So no pressure, Harry, said Fred, winking at him. As they walked out onto the pitch, a roar of noise greeted them. Mainly cheers before Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were anxious to see Slytherin beaten. But the Slytherins at the crowd made their boo and hissed hers too. Madame Hooch, the Quidditch teacher, asked Flint and Wood to shake hands, which they did, giving each other threatening stares and gripping father rather harder than was necessary. On my whistle, said Madame Hooch. 3, 2, 1. With a roar from the crowd to speed them upwards, the 14 players rode towards the leaden sky. Harry flew higher than any of them, squinting around for the snitch. All right there, Scarhead! Yelled Malfoy, shooting underneath him as though to show off the speed of his broom. Harry had no time to reply. At that very moment, a heavy-blade bludger came pelting towards him. He avoided it so narrowly that Harry felt it ruffle with his hair as it passed. Close one, Harry, said George, streaking past him with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back towards a Slytherin. Harry saw George give the bludger a powerful whack in the direction of Adrian Percy, but the bludger changed direction in midair and shot straight for Harry again. Harry dropped quickly to avoid it, and George managed to hit it hard towards Malfoy. Once again, the bludger served like a boomerang and shot at Harry's head. Harry put on a burst of speed and zoomed towards the other end of the pitch. He could hear Bludger whistling around behind him. What was going on? Bludger had never concentrated on one player like this. It was their job to try and unseat as many people as possible. Fred Weasley was waiting for the Bludger at the other end. Harry ducked as Fred swung at the Bludger with all his might. The Bludger was knocked off course. That's done it! Fred yelled happily, but he was wrong, as though it was magnetically attracted towards Harry. The Bludger pelted after him once more, and Harry was forced to fly off at full speed. It had started to rain. Harry felt heavy drops fall into his face, spattering onto his glasses. So. He didn't have a clue what was going on at the rest of the game until he heard Lee Jordan, who was commentating, say Slytherin had 60 points to 0. The Slytherin's superior brooms were clearly doing their jobs, and meanwhile the mad Bludger was doing all it took to knock Harry out of air. Fred and George were now flying so close to him on either side that Harry could see nothing at all except flailing arms that had no chance to look for the snitch, let alone catch it. Someone is tampered with this Bludger, Fred grunted, swinging his bat with all might as it had launched a new attack on Harry. "We need time out," said George, trying to sniggle to Wood and stop the Bludger breaking Harry's nose at the same time. Wood has obviously got the message. Madame Hooch's whistle rang out at Harry, Fred and George dived for the ground, still trying to avoid the mad Bludger. "What's going on?" said Wood, as the Gryffindor team huddled together, while Slytherins in the crowd jeered. "We're being flattered, Fred, George. Where were you when the Bludger stopped Angelina scoring?" "We were 20 feet about her, stopping the other Bludger murdering Harry, Oliver," said George angrily. "Someone fixed it! It won't leave Harry alone! It hasn't done for anyone else all game. The Slytherins must have done something to it, but the Bludger have been locked in Madame Hooch's office since our last practice." There was nothing wrong with them then," said Wood anxiously. Madame Hooch was walking towards them. Over her shoulder, Harry could see the Slytherin team cheering and pointing in his direction. "Listen," said Harry as she came nearer and nearer. "With you two flying around me all the same time, the only way I'm going to catch the snitch is it flies up my sleeve. Go back to the rest of the team and let me deal with the rogue one." "Don't be thick," said Fred. "I will take your head off." Wood was looking from Harry to the Weasleys. "Oliver, this is mad," said Alicia Spinnet angrily. "You cannot let Harry deal with everything on his own. Let's ask for an injury. If we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match," said Harry. "And we're not losing this Slytherin just because of a mad Bludger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone." This is all your fault, George said angrily to Wood. Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell him. Madame Hooch had joined them. Ready to resume play? She asked Wood. Wood looked as determined look on Harry's face.
All right, he said. Flair, George, you heard Harry. Leave him alone and let him deal with the bludger on his own. The rain was falling more heavily now. On Madame Hooch's whistle, Harry kicked hard into the air and heard the telltale whoosh of the bludger behind him. Higher and higher Harry climbed. He looped and swooped, spiraled, zigzagged and rolled. Slightly dizzy, he had nevertheless kept his eyes wide open. Train was racking up his glasses and ran up his nostrils as he hung upside down, avoiding another fierce dive from the bludger. He could hear laughter from the crowd. He knew he must look very stupid, but the rogue bludger was heavy and he couldn't change direction as quickly as he could. It began a kind of roller coaster ride around the edges of the stadium, squinting through the silver sheets of rain to the Gryffindor goalposts, where Adrian Posse was trying to get past Wood. A voice in Harry's ear told him the bludger had just missed him again. He returned right over and sped in the opposite direction. Training for the ballet, Potter! Yelled Malfoy as Harry was forced to do a stupid kind of trill in midair to dodge the bludger. Off Harry fled. The bludger trained a few feet behind him, and then, glaring back at Malfoy and Hatted, he saw it, the golden snitch. It was hovering in inches about Malfoy's left ear, and Malfoy, busy laughing at Harry, hasn't seen it. For an astonishing moment, Harry hung in midair, not daring to speed towards Malfoy, in case he looked up and saw the snitch. Whap! He had stayed still a second too long. The bludger had hit him at last, smashed into his elbow, and Harry felt his arm break. Dimly, dazed by the searing pain in his arm, the slit stairways on his train-drenched broom. One knee still crooked over it, his right arm dangling useless at his side. The bludger came panting back for a second attack, this time aiming at his face. Harry swerved out the way. One idea firmly dug into his numb brain. Get to Malfoy. Through a haze of rain and pain, he dived from the shimmering, sneering face below him and saw its eyes widen with fear. Malfoy thought Harry was attacking him. What the? He asked, cheering out of Harry's way. Harry took his remaining hat off his broom and made a wild snatch. He felt his fingers close to the golden snitch, but now was only gripping the broom with his legs, and was a yell from the crowd below as he headed straight to the ground, trying hard not to pass out. With a splattering thud, he hit the mud and rolled off his broom. His arm was handling a very strange angle. Riddled with pain, he heard, as though from a distance, a good deal of whistling and shouting. He focused on the snitch clutched in his good hand. Aha, he said vaguely. We won! And he fainted. He came round, rain falling in his face. Still lying on the pitch with someone leaning over him. He saw a glitter of teeth. Oh no, not you, he moaned. Doesn't know what he's saying, said Lockhart loudly to the anxious crowd of Gryffindor pressing around them. Not to worry, Harry. I'm about to fix your arm. No, said Harry. I'll keep it like this, thanks. He tried to sit up, but the pain was terrible. He heard a familiar clicking noise nearby. I don't want a photo of this, Calling, he said loudly. Lie back, Harry, said Lockhart soothingly. It's a simple charm. I've used countless times. Why can't I just go to the hospital wing? Said Harry through the clenched teeth. You should really, Professor, said a muddy Wood, who couldn't help grinning even though his seeker was injured. Great capture, Harry. Really spectacular. Your best yet, I'd say. Through the thicket of frogs around him, Harry spotted Fred and George Weasley wrestling the rogue bludger into a box. They were still putting up a terrific fight. Stand back, said Lockhart, who was running up his jade green sleeves. No, don't, said Harry weakly, but Lockhart was writing his wand a second later and directed it straight at Harry's arm. A strange and unpleasant sensation stirred at Harry's shoulder and spread all the way down to his fingerprints. It felt as though his arm was being deflated. He didn't dare look at what was happening. He had shut his eyes, his face turned away from his arm, but his worst fears were realized as the people about him gasped and calling Creamy began clicking away madly. His arm didn't hurt anymore, but nor did it feel remotely like an arm.